Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out top 20 artists banned from Top of the Pops. That's no surprise, right?
Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the songs and artists banned from Top of the Pops.
The hair. What?
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Hey, yeah, y'all. Hey, I have another reaction channel called JJLA Reacts Music. Maybe check it out. I'm not putting this on there because this is more of a British culture thing for my American friends who are watching. Top of the Pops is a cultural icon.
Number 20, Bad Manners. This may shock you since they were invited onto the show a number of times over the years, but yes, at one point this British ska group wasn't allowed in. Apparently this was down to their insane high-energy performances, which is bizarre, since surely you want everyone at home to be engaged and entertained by an outrageous show.
Why was this banned? This looks like a delightful number.
Alas, their weirdness was simply too much for someone at the Beeb. In particular, it was the time where Buster Bloodvessel painted his face red, which really seemed to tick them off. That must have been infuriating for fans at home, because every time Bad Manners appeared on the show, they made sure to put on the show of a lifetime.
That's great. Spam. I like that guy's name is Buster Bloodvessel. There he is. Hey, why was he banned? Doesn't say. Okay. That one doesn't make sense, does it? It looks like they would want them back once a month. The energy coming from Buster Bloodvessel is inspiring. Was it just too much for the BBC? They couldn't take it. They couldn't handle it. People were rioting in the streets. They were so inspired by Buster Bloodvessel. Brilliant.
Number 19, various songs by Wings.
Why?
Yes, even music royalty like Paul McCartney has been slapped with a big fat no by the Beeb in the past.
What you do,
While
Paul?
his group Wings did appear on the show to perform songs like Mary Had a Little Lamb, two of their hits were never allowed to even be mentioned. The first being Give Ireland Back to the Irish, and we'll let you guess why that caused controversy during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. The second was High 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 because of the lyrical content supposedly being linked to drug use.
Okay.
BBC also misinterpreted the line Get You Ready for My Polygon as saying Get You Ready for My Body Gun. I want you to lie on the bed, get you ready for my polygon. So yeah, despite both of these songs
like
being on the charts, the Chart Topper program just pretended they didn't exist.
So they didn't really get banned. The artist wasn't banned. The songs were banned. That's a little different. You can't ban Paul McCartney, right? Come on.
Number 18, King Kurt.
Banned for that hair.
Back
Devil
to the
horn
topic
hair.
of outrageous onstage behavior, it may come as little surprise that this psychobilly group was banned from the show after you hear the story of their previous appearance. While taking the stage to perform their song Destination Zululand, they made the decision to put their drummer in blackface and a caricature outfit, but surprisingly, that's not what supposedly got them banned. No, towards the end of their performance, in order to leave a real impression on the viewers at home, the group doused their lead singer in treacle and feathers. This was seen as wildly inappropriate and also made a huge mess of the stage. They were never invited back again.
The crew didn't want to have to clean up that mess again. I mean, yeah, yeah. I bet they got a lot of phone calls for that. Yeah. I'm surprised that the blackface didn't get them banned. It was the tarring and feathering. Interesting. Tarring and feathering is a form of public torture where a victim is stripped naked or stripped to the waist while wood tar, sometimes hot, is either poured or painted onto the person. The victim then either has feathers thrown on them or is rolled around on a pile of feathers so that they stick to the tar. Used to enforce unofficial justice or revenge, it was used in medieval Europe and the colonies in the early modern period, as well as the early American frontier, mostly as a form of vigilante justice. The image of a tarred and feather outlaw remains a metaphor for severe public criticism. Tarring and feathering was a very common punishment in British colonies in North America during 1766 through 1776. The most famous American tarring and feathering is that of John Malcolm, a British loyalist during the American Revolution. I thought there might be some racial overtones to that, but I didn't read any on Wikipedia, but I have a feeling, I feel like it has that, right?
Number 17, French Kiss by Lil Louis.
Oh.
How does a song with no lyrics get banned by the BBC? Here's how. In 1989, Lil Louis made an impact with this techno track, French Kiss. The song was mentioned in passing on the episode the following week, but that was all. Despite the fact that the track hit number 2 on the charts, the DJ was never invited onto the show to perform it, and here's why. Towards the end of the song, the voice of a woman making sexual moans can be heard. This was simply too much for the TOTP crew's hearts to handle.
Sounds like my neighbors.
Having a radio say too much for the TOTP crew's hearts to handle. Instead of having a radio-safe version of the track, they outright banned it.
Oh. Okay. I mean, they have regulations to uphold. They have standards, right? They don't want grandma hearing that. She'll clutch her pearls. So why couldn't they make a radio-safe version? I think it should be banned because it's called French Kiss and there's a little kid in the video. Like, that makes me uncomfortable.
Number 16, I Want Your Sex by George Michael.
Well, okay.
George Michael was no stranger to the BBC's weekly music show. He even got his lucky break on the show when Wham were invited as last-minute guests. However, there was one time where he was refused entry on the show to perform his latest chart topper, I Want Your Sex.
I want your sex.
Of course, this one was down to the sexual content of the song. Yeah, surprising, right? This one wasn't just banned by Top of the Pops though, it was also not allowed to be played anywhere by the BBC, including Radio 1. That didn't stop this one from being a knockout success in both the UK and the US. Number 15.
I remember this song, y'all. I had this album. This came out during a time I was a little kid. I was just a kid. And I would go to Kmart and buy the cassette tape of whatever looked interesting that was on the top 10. I didn't know. I saw this. I heard that Faith song on the radio. It's like, I'll get this tape. Fine. Like, I would get one every Friday night, And I remember when this song came on, I felt like, I can't let my parents hear this. This will blow my parents' mind. It's so dirty. Meanwhile, it's funny how a kid thinks that their parents couldn't I didn't think my parents could handle it. But really, it's just that my parents didn't think I could handle it, but I could. You know what I mean? But it did make me uncomfortable. I thought, I shouldn't be listening to this. I can't play this too loud. If he just changed the word sex to love, he could have made a lot more money on that song.
Number 15, Judge Dredd. Reggae and ska
Okay.
musician Judge Dredd holds a very distinct honor, having the most songs banned by the BBC of any artist ever. That's right, despite
What?
some tracks like Big 7 getting as high as number 8 on the charts back in 1972, Alexander Minto Hughes was never allowed to appear on Top of the Pops.
He never looked at the pretty girls, but he saw when the boys walked by.
This was because of the naughty and suggestive lyrics of his songs, which were
Okay.
considered too scandalous to ever broadcast. It's wild to believe that a star who was popular enough to even get the recognition of Elvis Presley was poo-pooed by the BBC. Number
What?
14.
I've never heard of this guy. Judge Dredd. Oh. Better known was an English reggae and ska musician. He was the first white recording artist to have a reggae hit in Jamaica. And the BBC has banned more of his songs from radio and television than those of any other recording artist because of his frequent use of sexual innuendo and double entendres. That's what the entendres are for, BBC. Come on. But following his death, Rolling Stone reported he sold several million albums throughout his 25-plus career and was second only to Bob Marley in UK reggae sales during the 1970s? Wow, amazing. Never heard of him. That's surprising.
Number 14, Madness.
Really?
By their own accounts, Madness weren't just banned from the show once, but 4 times in total. According to the band, despite the fact that they had appeared for live performances 22 times in total on the show, there were 4 instances that left the producers irate and vowed to never let them back on TOTP again.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our...
These obviously didn't last long. There was the time one of the members wore a shirt that directly insulted the BBC, another when a member held a sign to shout out his brother who was in prison, yet another where they destroyed the lift by jumping up and down on it, and of course the time they allegedly dressed up in police uniforms and scared the Clash into thinking they were there to arrest them.
It's just gone noon, our fast monsoon on the banks of the River Nile.
They supposedly got to know a commissioner at BBC who took a liking to them and would allow them to bypass the ban every time.
Good. I like Madness. They seem like fun guys. I want to party with Madness. That's all just good fun. I guess a shirt directly insulting the BBC. I don't know. I guess I could see that. But come on, have a sense of humor about yourself, Bubba. Right?
Number 13, Ebenezer Good by the Shaman.
Well, there's a guy in the place got a bit of sweet face, and he goes by the name of Ebenezer Good.
As you'll see on this list, sometimes the producers behind the scenes don't pay attention to the lyrical content of the songs that appear on the show, and as such, they don't realize they're broadcasting something that may sensationalize certain vices.
What?
Take for example this banger from the Shaman, which the BBC didn't notice was celebrating drug use. It wasn't until the Broadcasting Standards Council gave the beep a telling off that they realized this and added the song to the banned list.
Naughty, naughty, very naughty.
Hang on. What are the lyrics? A great philosopher once wrote, naughty, 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 very naughty, ha ha ha. There's a guy in a place who's got a bittersweet face and he goes by the name of Ebenezer Good. His friends call him Easer, and E is the main geezer, and E vibes up the place like no other man could. E's refined, E's sublime, E makes you feel, I'm now realizing what he's talking about. Okay. 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 I mean, alright, okay, I get it.
Number 12, Ian Dury and the Blockheads.
Guess what? I wanna be straight.
Ian Dury and the Blockheads demanded your attention every time they appeared on the show, picking out some outrageous costumes and such. But one outfit that didn't go over well was the one they wore on the 11th of September in 1980. They were dressed as policemen, which doesn't seem too scandalous. However, this was during a major investigation on police corruption, so the timing caused a bit of a stir. This, coupled with the fact that their next hit, Spasticus Autisticus, was banned by the BBC, led them to not appearing on the show afterwards. The ban would eventually be lifted, however, and Dury appeared on the show with a clip from Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick on later episodes.
Hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me. Hit me. Je t'adore. Ich liebe dich.
Yeah, these guys are jokesters. Spasticus autisticus. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's probably offensive. Is dressing up like police officers during a corruption investigation offensive or genius? I think it's genius. Hit me with your rhythm stick, y'all. I want to party with that rhythm stick.
Number 11, Primal Scream. This one was just bizarre. Primal Scream, the rock band known for their tracks such as Loaded and Moving On Up, hadn't broken the charts that week, but were invited to perform on the show regardless. It would have served as a great platform for them to get their new song out to a large audience, like they had when they previously performed on the show. But
wow, so they didn't even see. For my American friends, Top of the Pops, they invite the artists that are at the top of the pops, hence the name. But these guys weren't on the charts yet. What'd they do?
But alas, it didn't work out this time, by their own choice. According to reports, the Scottish band actually didn't show up to the show because they believed the place the venue was located at, Luton, was not rock and roll enough. The BBC did not take this cancellation lightly, and as such decided to ban the band from appearing on Top of the Pops. The ban would be lifted years later, however, once the Beeb had forgiven them.
Where's Luton? Why isn't Luton rock and roll enough? Show me on a map. It's north of London. That looks like a rock and roll place to me. I bet that was an excuse, y'all. The lead singer had diarrhea.
Number 10, We Call It Acid by D-Mob.
Oh.
In 1988, the acid house subgenre was facing a lot of heat from the press because of its ties to drug use. So it wasn't really good for optics when a song named We Call It Acid was presented to the Top of the Pops audience by a host wearing a shirt with a smiley face on it, a symbol which was often associated with taps of acid.
It's D-Mob featuring Gary Hazeman, and We Call It Acid!
That would be the last time the song was featured on the show, as the BBC swiftly banned it. Surprisingly, the song's musician Danny D actually claimed there was no relation between the song and drug use, expressing he himself was not a drug user and was just celebrating the genre. But that wasn't enough for the Beeb.
I'm surprised that made it on, you know? It's in the title of the song. How did this even get on? If you're trying to avoid D-word stuff, right? I never heard this song before. Didn't make it across the pond.
Number 9, Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Oh.
It seems almost impossible to dislike Frankie Goes to Hollywood's breakout song, but it appears the band's not-so-subtle eroticism made it hard for the suits at the BBC to relax. Funnily enough, it was actually the BBC's fault that the song became such a mega hit. It was floundering in the charts before the band performed it on Top of the Pops, at which point it exploded. But that's when the stiffs noticed all the sexual innuendos and called for the song to be banned from TOTP and all BBC radio stations. But the song was such an undeniable hit, and by the end of the year, they were forced to lift the ban and allow Frankie to perform on the Christmas Day special episode.
Did he shoot a bird? Hang on, did he shoot me a bird? That's allowed on the BBC? Wow. It's so obviously sexual, but no one at the BBC realized it until it was too late. Y'all, these BBC executives are asleep at the wheel. Or they used to be. Or maybe what's happening is the producers of Top of the Pops are music fans. They love this song. They want to put it on the show because they know people like this song. There's some old stodgy executive who doesn't even watch the show, but he gets all the phone calls when people complain, right? That's a great song, though.
Number 8, Disarm by the Smashing Pumpkins.
What?
This is the first time they've ever done Top of the Pops, but I'm sure it won't be the last. Yes, it's time for that Top of the Pops exclusive. It's the Smashing Pumpkins with Tonight.
This one's another victim of weird misinterpretation. In 1993, Britain was shocked by the murder of young James Bulger by two 10-year-old boys. But what does that have to do with the Smashing Pumpkins' standout record? Well, very little. But that's not how some BBC officials saw it.
Cut that little child inside of me and such a part of you.
The song contains lyrics like, "Cut that little child," and "The killer in me is the killer in you," which some thought were too closely tied to the horrific events involving Bulger. Despite the fact that these lyrics were actually more poetic and in reference to Billy Corgan's fractured relationship with his parents, Top of the Pops insisted that the song be banned from the show.
I mean, this is a different situation. Because it had nothing to do with the band. It was just a timing thing. You know, okay. At least they lifted the ban later, right?
Number 7, A Pair of Brown Eyes by the Pogues. It wasn't always live performances that were banned on Top of the Pops. Often when a performer couldn't or didn't want to appear on the show that week, they'd simply air the music video instead. This didn't always work out for the bands though. Take the Pogues for example with their song A Pair of Brown Eyes, which had a music video that was highly critical of then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. The music video portrays her treatment of Ireland akin to that of Big Brother from George Orwell's 1984. To avoid any controversy, Top of the Pops decided to simply never broadcast this clip.
I left the place, sometimes crawling, sometimes walking.
I mean, okay. So I just reacted to another Top of the Pops video. A Trash Theory Top of the Pops video on my other channel, a music reaction channel. And this guy was too inebriated to perform. Hilarious. I could understand the BBC not wanting to get on Margaret Thatcher's bad side. You know? Like, don't want Thatcher coming after you.
Number 6, Creep by Radiohead.
What?
When you were here before, look you in the eye.
These days, Creep stands as the most divisive song in Radiohead's incredible library. Some fans love it, while others absolutely despise it. It seemed like the BBC fell into the latter camp back in 1992 when the song was released, and they absolutely refused to play it. The reason? Just a simple one, it was allegedly too depressing. Oh yeah, and it contained an F-bomb. The band decided to combat this later in 1993 by re-releasing the song without the expletives in the lyrics. And that seemed to be enough as far as the BBC was concerned.
All right.
The band were finally allowed to play it on Top of the Pops.
Great singer. Great band. Oh my gosh. Great band. Great song. I don't know if I believe that they banned it because it was just too depressing. I think it was that F-bomb, right? Just the F-bomb. How could that be too depressing? What's the F-bomb?
Number 5, Peaches by the Stranglers. Hitting number 8 in the charts is no easy feat, especially with a song as cheeky as this.
Walking on the beaches, looking at the beaches.
Alongside Golden Brown and No More Heroes, Peaches is among the Stranglers' most recognizable tracks, depicting the inner monologue of a pervy bloke going around the beaches and getting an eyeful of the ladies. It was a miracle that even a heavily censored version of the track was ever able to air on BBC Radio. But Top of the Pops was a step too far in the eyes of the Beeb. So when invited onto the show, they were instead asked to play the single's B-side track, Go Buddy Go. What a shame. Imagine what could have been.
I don't know. Yeah, that's That's a pretty pervy song. But is it worth banning? I feel like a lot of rock and roll lyrics are full of innuendos, right? Like, to get around that kind of stuff. I guess you gotta be more clever with your innuendos, Stranglers.
Number 4, The Prodigy.
Second week at number 1, of course. Prodigy are top of the pop.
In some cases, it wasn't just one song that was blacklisted by Top of the Pops. The Prodigy were making waves in the late 90s in the EDM scene, but the world, or more so older audiences, weren't ready for them yet. BBC believed that their number 1 record, Firestarter, would encourage people to commit arson around Britain, but reluctantly played it a couple of times on the show before pulling the plug. One song they would absolutely not budge on though was Smack My Bitch Up, which they labelled as sexist and potentially inciting violence against women.
Okay.
The song was never allowed to appear on the show, despite its chart-topping success.
Yeah, okay. I could see why that was not allowed. I mean, that one, I don't know. I guess that makes sense, right? Yeah. I reacted to a video about the Prodigy, and it's pretty fascinating. The lead singer, I forgot his name, but he was a hippie before he was this guy, the Demon. Firestarter. He had a deeper perspective on his performing than I expected. He said there was a quote about him saying something about how if someone's on stage playing an instrument, they get a lot of respect. But someone like him, who's not playing an instrument, they're just vocalizing and moving around, dancing or whatever, they don't get as much respect. But he's getting that whole crowd pumped up with his body movements. That should be as respected as a musical instrument. And I think he's right.
Number 3, Je t'aime, moi non plus, by Serge Gainsbourg. The first ever banned number 1 track in the show's history was back in 1969 when French artist Serge Gainsbourg lit the world on fire with his raunchy romance anthem. The song, which translates to I love you, me neither, was seen as far too lewd for the BBC's television show, including lyrics like I go and I come between your loins. Though you'd have to actually be able to understand French to pick up on these lyrics. It also featured a quivering segment that some believe to be the sounds of an orgasm, though that was debated by Gainsbourg. But he didn't really have any say when it came to TOTP adding this to the blacklist.
Well, at least they're consistent with their bans, right? You can't have sexual moaning in your song. I guess. The kids will flip. Weird that it's in French, and they still banned it.
Number 2, God Save the Queen by Sex Pistols.
Well, this would be obvious.
Sex Pistols certainly didn't make any friends back in '77 when they released this anti-authority track.
God save the Queen! The fascist regime!
Radio stations refused to play it, and even Woolworths refused to sell the record. Something about their critique towards the British monarchy didn't sit right with big names in the music world, despite resonating with many of the working class.
God save the Queen! We mean it, man!
Famously, many claimed it was the BBC who blocked the track from reaching number 1 on the UK singles chart. So it wouldn't come as any surprise that the track was also banned from Top of the Pops.
Hey, getting banned by the BBC is a road to stardom. I don't think this song would be as popular if the BBC didn't ban it, you know?
Number 1, Happy Mondays.
Now for a band that's come all the way from Manchester. They're called Happy Monday, featuring a very special guest, Kirsty MacColl. The song's Alleluia, and it's number 30.
All right.
Happy Mondays lead Shawn Ryder has been quite vocal over the years about his feud with Top of the Pops. The band's music wasn't exactly controversial, so you might be wondering how they managed to find themselves walloped by the banhammer on the biggest musical show in Britain at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it was more of a backstage issue. Happy Mondays appeared a few times on the show, and on one episode, an altercation backstage wherein one of the BBC bigwigs scolded Sean took place. Instead of bowing down and taking it, Sean instead opted to tell him to, quote, "F*** off, knobhead." As you
Oh,
can
well,
imagine,
that'll do
the
it.
pompous bloke didn't like that.
Yeah.
The band was banned from the show, but fortunately, it didn't impede their success. Which band do you think should have been banned from Top of the Pops? Let
None
us
of 'em.
know in those comments below. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this
I
other
guess.
recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be
Y'all be sure to go to WatchMojo UK and link in the guide. Also, if you like music reactions, check out my other reaction channel, JJ Reacts Music, where I probably should have uploaded this, but I do more like music documentary reactions. I can't say that I agree with all of them, but some of them are not surprising. You know, in a perfect world, there would be no censorship. But I guess the BBC are trying to mitigate the pearl clutching. Thursday night prime time, right? Most of the time, Thursday night, sometimes Friday night, prime time. You can't be talking about doing it. You know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, it's art. Let the artist art. Right. A lot of these I had never heard of. I didn't even know Wings played on Top of the Pops, ever. Or this guy. The first one. Bad Manners. I bet it doesn't say exactly why this was banned, but I bet it had something to do with the fact that he was wearing a dress. And that makes people clutch pearls. Pearl clutching. The BBC's just looking out for the pearls, y'all. Pearls don't like to be clutched. Right? Looking out for grandma. I wish the United States has something like Top of the Pops. I guess we had TRL, but not even, I don't know. Yeah. I don't think there will ever be another thing like Top of the Pops. With streaming now. I talk about this in my other video. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.